Hey, Teddy K here for the Best Buy blog, and in this video, we are taking a look at the Sony Alpha 7.5, Sony's latest mirrorless camera that is every bit a hybrid shooter. So finally, Sony's done it. The Sony Alpha 7.5, or A75 for short, is finally out, and here is basically one of the better hybrid shooters that you'll find. So while there is a photography first element here, or at least focus, there's more than enough video capability if you're looking for some of that as well. I'll go into some of the caveats over the course of this video, but the point is that you're looking at something that is going to try to do both very, very well. I'll start with the body because here there are some slight changes, but nothing very, very big. So slightly deeper grip, which I actually appreciate. So I'm coming from the A7 III personally. I have shot a little bit with the A7 IV, but coming from the A7 III is my daily sort of camera. This felt a little more substantial and just a little bit easier, especially for one-handed operation. And since we have a screen that pulls out as well and flips out, just like the A7 IV, we have a situation there too where a lot of one-handed and kind of angle perspectives and everything are a little bit easier. So I do feel that there's something there when it comes to that. A lot of the dials and buttons though are pretty much in the same place. So if you are coming from a previous model, even from the A7 III, I don't know that you're going to find too much of a change as far as where things are because they're mostly in the same place. The menu system's different. We'll get to that in a second. But the main thing here is that this is a pretty substantial camera. I have it attached to a G Master 2 24 to 70 millimeter lens. And this combination is killer. When you put it together, it's fantastic. On paper, 33 megapixels might seem like it's the same on paper, but it's not because this is actually a partially stacked sensor. Now, a traditional sensor uses one flat layer, captures the image, and then sends it over to the processor. With a partially stacked sensor, there's an extra layer. And under the pixel layer that is able to essentially create a separate lane. What this means is that you'll get better autofocus, burst shooting, even some dynamic range benefits as a result as well. So there are tangible benefits. Now, again, none of this happens without the new Bion's XR2 processor. This is a speedier chip than what we've seen before in this particular lineup. And you kind of can tell when you're shooting with it that things sort of move faster. So the way that autofocus works, which is already really good to begin with, but the way it kind of locks on to a human or animal's eyes, for example, or an insect, a car, even other objects, it can lock on and stay locked on too. A lot of that is because of the processor, but also because the stack sensor is doing its job too. But there's another thing too that I think is pretty cool that Sony included here, which is pre-capture. This is a carryover from the A1 II and the A9 III. Basically what happens here is that when you have it enabled, you can essentially, the camera's capturing images for you before you even fully press the shutter. It's very interesting. You can set it up to a second worth of pre-capture, but it can also work in milliseconds. So depending on what you're trying to capture in terms of movement, high speed, things like that, there could be some real advantages to capturing that exact moment if you just missed it by pressing the shutter. A couple of caveats though. This will only work with the electronic shutter. So if you have the mechanical shutter on, which is by default, it will not work in that case. So the electronic shutter gives you a faster burst rate, and that's partly why pre-capture is tied to it. There are some caveats to using that. So if you do go with pre-capture, you may introduce a little bit more rolling shutter in that case. So it's not smooth sailing in every way, but it is a very, very cool feature to have and something that I think you can experiment with based on, again, what it is you're capturing and the likelihood or the chance that you might miss that exact moment, because again, nothing's taken until you fully press the shutter. Seeing as how I just showed you the menu system, well, Sony didn't overhaul that, although it'll feel like it did if you're coming from the A7 III or something earlier, because that was a different look for the system. But again, it's still menu within menu within menu. I highly, highly recommend that you take time to go through it just to recognize where all the features are and even take notes, because chances are you are going to forget. I certainly did, and I still do, even using Sony all these years. Part of the reason is because certain things are in different places. So pre-capture will be in a different spot, for example, than, let's say, composite RAW or extended RAW. And even the terminologies might be different from other brands. So if you're migrating, let's say, from Canon or Nikon or something like that, then you may find that the terminologies and all the names that are used might be slightly different. But I digress. The point is here is that just getting through the menu system is a task unto itself. But there are so many features and settings in there that if you're looking to customize, there's a lot of avenues to do that. One of my favorites is the function button. So using that is great as a way to just kind of keep all the ones, the features or settings that you use most often pretty close. There are buttons you can also program as well. The touch screen, now the screen, I mentioned that it already folds out and articulates. That is a touch screen as well. So if you wanted to focus on a subject and lock on, you can do it that way as opposed to doing it through the joystick in the back. That is always an option. And of course, any settings or anything that you might want to change is accessible by touching the screen as well. So I'll show you here the memory card setup here is actually kind of similar to the other sport sport cameras. So the A9 III and the A1 II. So you'll have a CF Express card and a UHS 2 card for SD cards. Note that you can put an SD card in the CF Express slot too. It will fit in there. It is kind of a dual slot in that regard. So you can set this also so that if you're taking photos, for example, it'll go to one card. But if you want video to go to CF Express for the extra speed, you can also do it there too. So that it's a nice little thing that you can set up in the camera. Otherwise, the ports are pretty much the same. So there are two USB-C ports. This is interesting and new. So now there is a dedicated USB-C charging port, as well as one that you can interface. So if you want to tether or something like that, you can do that as well. Nothing else really different as far as like, plugging in a microphone or anything like that. I highly recommend it if you are going to do video though, because the onboard mics are not going to be great on this. Okay, so I'm going to cover image quality along with sort of usability because, again, this is not the kind of camera that I would pigeonhole into one particular type of sort of photography. I mean, you can use this for wildlife just as much as you can use it for street photography, product, or even portraits. Even sports photography, for example. I know that naturally Sony's bigger flagships are going to be better suited to that, but that doesn't mean you can't take sports with this. And certainly if, let's say you have a child who is playing a sport or anything like that, you can certainly capture them pretty easily with this, especially with the eye detection, which is fantastic. So for me, now I had some limited time using the camera and I wasn't able to go to a sporting event or anything like that. I did test this out with kids of friends and family. I was not allowed to use those images, but nevertheless, very, very nice in terms of how easily it just captures and locks on to the eyes in particular. And that way you're not really missing a shot. Now, naturally your settings are going to matter. So in terms of how much you're freezing movement and lighting conditions and all that stuff obviously comes into play. But nevertheless, I really found dynamic range to be very, very good here. I wasn't sure what to expect given the stack sensor and all the elements involved, but I got to say, when shooting in RAW and then editing those photos in post after in Lightroom or Photolab or something like that, great results. I mean, really, really great results. There is a bit of noise. I tend to avoid higher ISOs because I don't want too much noise in my shots, but I found I could shoot at 800 to 1000, even 1600 and kind of avoid it. But at the same time, even if some of it was introduced, editing in Lightroom after negated some of that noise. Generally though, again, the autofocus is one of the key things. And with pre-capture and some of those other features available, even extended RAW, for example, or composite RAW, where you can take a bracketed RAW shot, there are different ways in which you can capture whatever it is you're trying to capture. But again, I would caution that you look into or just pay attention to what the nuances are with that. So for example, if you're shooting fast action, you're not going to do an extended RAW or a composite RAW. It's just not meant for that. But if it's a static subject, for example, then you certainly could, especially in a more challenging lighting situation. When it comes to video, this is another one of those things where, again, you're not getting 6K or 8K here. So if you're looking for that, this is not the camera for you. If you're okay with 4K and you like the idea of 4K at 120p, for example, you can do that here. I just like that the footage is fairly clean, and the idea that you can shoot also log and just take more control over the kind of video that you want to take is nice. To me, for a hybrid shooter, I liked what I got out of this. Again, I'm not a videographer first, so I understand that if you are, this may not be enough. But at the same time, if you are a hybrid shooter or the kind of video that you're shooting really fits with what this offers, I don't think you're going to be too disappointed. Again, the sensor is great. The pixel readout is excellent. And honestly, the footage, even when you edit it after, is going to come out looking pretty good. So with all this in mind, how does battery last? Well, it's actually better than it was before. And I'm kind of surprised because it's the same exact battery as it was in the previous model. So, I mean, literally, this battery is the same one that works with the A7 III, A7 IV. You could get up to 600 shots in one charge. You could get up to 600 shots, but which is very, very good. That I was not getting that with the A7 III, that's for sure. I still would recommend that you get a backup battery if you're doing some pro work or semi-pro work. One battery may not be enough. You always want that backup just in case, especially if you're doing a lot of video with this as well. 4K video capture is going to eat away at the battery. So I do recommend that your workflows, whatever they may be, if they're more intricate, a second backup battery is always a good idea to have. Nevertheless, though, you can at least rely on the fact that this is going to last longer than the same battery did on previous models. Look, all in all, the A7 V is not without some challenges. It's not the perfect camera. I know that there's going to be all kinds of, there already is a lot of, well, criticism over the lack of open gate video recording. For me, as a photographer first, so I'm doing this review from that perspective. As a photographer first, I would say, you know, this is a great camera. This is a camera that I can already tell that I can rely on, and that's key. I mean, I'm doing my work as a journalist, but at the same time, I also do professional photography as well. And so knowing that this is not generally going to let me down or is almost guaranteed to get the shot that I'm looking for under varying conditions is really, really helpful. So again, it's always helpful to pair the body with a really good lens. In this case, I have that with the G Master 2, but when you have good glass paired with everything that's going on in the body, and especially the way that you want to customize it and shoot what you want to shoot, I don't think you're going to be disappointed with the results, especially when it comes to raw photos that you edit afterward. There just is a little more wiggle room in editing than there was before. And that's my review of the Sony A7 V, available at Best Buy now. You can check out more by clicking that link below. For the Best Buy blog, I'm Teddy K. Thanks for watching.